Alright, so hello and welcome ladies and gentlemen to the 5th video in this new and wonderful series. And today we're going to take a look at all the class changes, and let's start with the Mage. So Presence of Mind is no longer a talent and is instead learned by all arcane mages. Evanescence is the new level 15 talent. You will fade into the nether, avoiding all attacks against you for 3 seconds. The spell may be cast while cast time spell is in progress and is not on the global cooldown. It will replace Ice Block and it has a 45-second cooldown. Temporal Shield has been removed. Alter Time is now a level 30 talent, replacing Temporal Shield. Alter Time now lasts 15 seconds, up from 6, has a 90-second cooldown, down from 3 minutes, and no longer affects the casting mage's mana, buffs, or debuffs. Cold Snap now also resets the cooldown of Presence of Mind, Dragon's Breath, and Evanescence. Nether Tempest, Living Bomb, and Frost Bomb are now only available to their corresponding specialization only, and share the left talent slot. Nether Tempest can now only be on one target at a time, down from unlimited, but its secondary damage now hits all targets in range, up from only one, and deals 100% of the primary damage, up from 50%. Living Bomb can once again be applied to multiple targets, can be spread by Inferno Blast, and has a normal 1.5 second cooldown. More of its damage has been moved to its explosion. Frost Bomb has been redesigned. It now lasts 12 seconds, has no cooldown, and explodes every time the target is critically hit by the mage's Ice Lance. The damage per explosion has been reduced by 75% to compensate. Unstable Magic is the new talent available at level 75 in the middle talent slot. And what it does is your Arcane Blast, Fireball, and Frostbolt have a 25% chance to explode on impact, dealing additional 50% damage to that target and all other enemies within 8 yards. The right level 75 talent slot is now filled by a new talent that varies by specialization. Supernova causes a pulse of arcane energy around the target enemy or ally, dealing arcane damage to all enemies within 8 yards and knocking them up. If the primary target is an enemy, they take 100% increased damage. Replaces Frost Nova, 25-second cooldown, and instant cast. Blast Wave causes an explosion of fiery force around the target enemy or ally, dealing fire damage to all enemies within 8 yards and dazing them, reducing their movement speed by 70% for 4 seconds. If the primary target is an enemy, they take 100% increased damage. Replaces Frost Nova, once again 25-second cooldown, and it's an instant cast. And Ice Nova causes a whirl of icy wind around the target enemy or ally, dealing frost damage to all enemies within 8 yards and freezing them for 4 seconds. If the primary target is an enemy, once again they take 100% more damage. It replaces Frost Nova. This one has a 20-second cooldown, and once again is an instant cast. Invocation has been removed. Instead, you will have Mirror Image as a new level 90 talent, and they will now inherit 50% of the mage's spell power, up from 5. Rune of Power no longer replaces Evocation, no longer increases mana regeneration, and now lasts 3 minutes, up from 1. Incanter's Ward has been removed and has been replaced by Incanter's Flow as a new level 90 talent. And here's the description. Magical energy flows through you, increasing all spell damage done by 5% per stack. While in combat, the magical energy builds up to 5 stacks over 5 seconds and then diminishes down to 1 stack over 5 seconds. This cycle repeats every 10 seconds. Frost Armor now gives 15% chance to multi-strike instead of 7% haste. Glyph of Icy Veins now causes Icy Veins to provide 75% chance to multi-strike instead of 20% haste. Shatter now multiplies critical strike chance by 1.5, down from 2. And Brain Freeze effect no longer makes Frost Firebolt instant, but it can now stack to 2. It also no longer triggers from the Bomb talent, and instead has a 10% chance to trigger from Frostbolt casts. Each multi-strike or Frostbolt increases that cast chance by additional 45%, total 100% on double multi-strikes. Arcane Blast's cast time has been increased to 2.25 seconds, up from 2, and its damage has been increased by 12.5% to compensate. Arcane Charges now last 15 seconds, up from 10. Next we have Monks. All abilities available to Mistweavers now have 1.5 second global cooldown, up from 1 second. Stance of the Sturdy Ox and Stance of the Fierce Tiger now reduce the global cooldown of the Monk's abilities by 0.5%. Stance of the Wise Serpent no longer increases haste from items by 50%. Focus and Harmony is a new passive ability for Mistweavers, and what it does, basically, it allows your haste to lower your global cooldown. Crackling Jade Lightning no longer generates chi for Mistweaver monks. Soothing Mist no longer generates chi for Mistweaver monks. Thunder Focus Tea now causes the next Renewing Mist to jump up to 4 times, used to cause the next uplift to refresh the duration of Renewing Mist on all target. Instead, it will now jump. Healing Spheres now heal an ally within 12 yards, up from 6 yards for 100%, up from 50% of their normal healing when they expire. And Detonate Chi is a new spell available to Mistweavers. It will instantly detonate all of your healing spheres, causing each of them to heal a nearby ally within 12 yards of the sphere, and it has a 15-second cooldown. Stance of the Spirited Crane is a new ability for Mistweaver monks, which replaces Stance of the Fierce Tiger. The spell power to attack power conversion effect has been moved from Stance of the Wise Serpent to Stance of the Spirited Crane, as well as the Eminence effect has been moved from Stance of the Wise Serpent to Stance of the Spirited Crane. Teachings of the Monastery now make Spinning Crane Kick heal friends instead of damaging enemies, while in Stance of the Wise Serpent it would heal allies and damage enemies. Mastery Gift of the Serpent's healing spheres now scale with spell power instead of attack power. Serpent's Zeal has been removed. Eminence now always includes auto attacks. Muscle Memory and Vital Mists have been merged. Muscle Memory now requires Stance of the Spirited Crane and passively increases the damage of Crackling Jade Lightning by 100%. Causes Tiger Palm to trigger the Vital Mist effects, and causes Blackout Kick to hit 4 additional nearby targets for 50% damage. The following abilities now require Stance of the Wise Serpent for Mistweavers. It's Enveloping Mists, Renewing Mists, Soothing Mists, and Uplift. And the following abilities now require Stance of the Spirited Crane for Mistweavers: Blackout Kick, Jab, and Tiger Palm. When a player runs through multiple healing spheres at once, only as many as needed to heal the player to full health will be consumed, instead of all of them. Healing spheres from Gift of the Serpent now heal an injured ally within 12 yards, up from 6 for 100%, up from 50% of their normal effect when they expire. Afterlife's healing spheres now heal the same amount as other healing spheres. Transcendence. Transfer no longer has an energy or mana cost. Storm, Earth, and Fire no longer has an energy cost and is off the global cooldown. Touch of Death is now usable on targets that have 10% or less health remaining or have less current health than your maximum health. The rules against players remain unchanged. Fist of Fury now always deal full damage to your primary targets. Additional targets are still affected by the damage split. And Glyph of Leer of the Ox now causes Black Ox statue to passively pulse a minor amount of threat to all enemies within 30 yards. And that's it for the monk. Moving on to the Paladin. Divine Favor now also increases all of Paladin's healing by 100% for its duration. Denounce its range has been increased to 40 yards, up from 30. Hammer of Righteousness now deals 50% physical weapon damage, up from 15 to the primary target. But the primary target is no longer hit with the holy damage. Seals no longer cost any mana. Stay of Execution, the holy version of Execution Sentence, now deals its healing in a large burst at first and then decreasing over time, reversed from before. And Eternal Flame now deals 100% of direct healing of World of Glory, up from 70, but only 50% as much periodic healing as before. Additionally, Bastion of Glory no longer affects the periodic healing. Moving on to the Priest. Atonement now heals for 25% less than before. Halo and Divine Star now follow standard AoE capping rules. Chakra Serenity now increases healing of single target spells by 10%, down from 25%. Holy World Serenity now heals for 40% more than before. Chakra Sanctuary now increases healing of area of effect spells by 10%, down from 25%. Holy Word Sanctuary now heals for 60% more than before. Rapid Renewal no longer reduces the global cooldown of Renew. Shadow Priest Mastery, Shadowy Recall, has been replaced with a new mastery, Mental Anguish. and it increases the damage of Mind Blast, Mind Spike, Mind Flay, and Mind Sear by 20%. Prayer of Mending from multiple priests can now be on the same target, as well as one priest can throw it onto multiple targets. Void Tendrils now have a 10% of the priest's health, down from 20, and damage dealt to the rooted target is now also dealt to the Void Tendril itself. Angelic Feather. If cast on players, will always prefer the casting priest over others, then pick the player closest to the target location. If there are no players where it is targeted, it will still create a feather that can be picked up as before. Additionally, when collecting multiple feathers, the duration will be extended instead of replaced. Holy Nova is no longer available via a major glyph, and is instead a Discipline Priest specialization spec. Its mana cost has been lowered and its healing increased, as it's intended as the efficient area of effect healing spell for Discipline Priests. And Cascade, Divine Star, and Halo will no longer heal for Shadow Priests or deal damage for Discipline and Holy Priests. Rogues. Tricks of the Trade now has no energy cost and no longer increases damage cost by the target by 15%. Assassin's Resolve no longer requires daggers to function. Dispatch can now be used with a fist weapon or one-handed swords, dealing 331% weapon damage instead of 480% when used with those weapons instead of daggers. Mutilate can now be used with a fist weapon or one-handed swords, dealing 137% weapon damage instead of 200 when used with those weapons instead of daggers. Sinister Strike now deals 188% weapon damage when used with a dagger instead of 130%. Revealing Strike now deals 20% more damage but no longer advances Bandit's Gill. Seal Fate now also grants a common point for area attacks that critically strike the rogue's primary target. Honor Amongst Thieves can now also be triggered by critical hits from the rogue's melee auto attacks. Crimson Tempest's periodic damage now has a rolling period behavior, meaning that remaining damage from previous application is added into the newly applied periodic damage effect. Hemorrhage's periodic damage now has a rolling periodic effect as well, doing the same thing as the previous one. And Subterfuge now allows you to use ability that requires stealth for 3 seconds after leaving stealth instead of actually staying stealthed for 3 seconds. Shamans. Searing Totem. Searing Bolt damage increased by 65%. Earth Elementals deal 90% less auto attack damage. Primal Earth Elementals Pulverize ability no longer deals damage. Unleash Flame no longer deals direct damage but increases the Shaman's next fire spell by 40%, the damage I mean, of course. Unleash Frost no longer deals direct damage, but now also slows the target by 70%, rather than only when the target is already snared by a frost spell. Unleash Wind no longer deals damage, but now increases attack speed by 60%. Lightning Bolt is no longer castable while moving by default. Effects like Spirit Walker's Grace can still make the spell castable while moving. Shamanism no longer reduces the cast time of Chain Lightning, but instead now increases the damage of Chain Lightning by 100%. Wind Shear no longer affects threat, and Wind Fury weapon no longer has a 3-second internal cooldown. Chain Heal now heals each chain target for 15% less than the previous target. Unleash Life no longer increases the healing done from Healing Rain. Earthling Weapon now increases healing done by 5% instead of increasing healing spell power by a flat amount. Healing Stream Totem's mana cost has been reduced to 10% of base mana, down from 23.5, and its healing has been reduced by 50%. Glyph of Totemic Recall now only increases the mana returned from recalling your totems by 25%, down from 75. Mana Tide Totem now increases the spirit of all allies by 50%, down from 200% of the Shaman's spirit. It remains unchanged for the Shaman activating the totem, and it still ignores temporary spirit buffs. And Conductivity is no longer triggered by damaging spells for Restoration Druids or by healing spells for non-Restoration Druids. Next on the list we have Warlocks. Healthstone's cooldown will now not reset until the player leaves combat. Healing from the ability can no longer be a critical effect. Demonic Gateway no longer has charges, up from being limited to 5 charges. Every party or raid member can use them once every 90 seconds, up from 45 seconds. The maximum distance apart they can be is now 40 yards instead of 70 yards. Drain Life now heals for 30% less than before, and Glyph of Drain Life now increases the healing of Drain Life by 100%, down from 30, and Shadow Burn no longer generates any mana. That's it for Warlocks. Moving on to the Warrior. Recklessness now increases critical strike chance by 15%, down from 30%, and increases critical strike damage by 10%. Shattering Throw no longer reduces the armor of the target, it only does damage and breaks immunities. It is also no longer learned via any specialization, but instead through a new major glyph of Shattering Throw. Heroic Throw now has a 6-second cooldown, down from 30, but now has a 15-yard minimum range. Headlong Rush is a new passive ability for warriors. Haste reduces global cooldown and the cooldowns of Mortal Strike, Bloodthirst, Slam, and Thunderclap. Riposte has been redesigned. Riposte gives the warrior a plus 100% chance to parry until they parry an attack or after getting a critical strike with an auto attack. Second Wind no longer directly heals the warrior while active. Instead, Second Wind grants the warrior 10% leech while active, which causes the warrior to heal for 10% of all damage and healing done by the warrior while active. Bladestorm is now a level 90 talent, swapping places with Stormbolt. Bladestorm no longer allows the use of shouts while active. It does still allow the use of Taunt and Rage Regeneration, Shield Wall, and Last Stand, and as a result, Stormbolt is now a level 60 talent. Bloodsearch's Spell Alert has been moved to the top slot instead of the left-right slots. Raging Blow now has a Spell Alert on the left and right slots, and Rage now increases all damage, up from only physical damage, and Mastery Unshackled Fury for Fury Warriors now increases all damage, not just physical damage, and Deep Wounds now lasts 15 seconds or until the target is healed to full health. Aspect of the Pact, Aspect of the Cheetah, Aspect of the Beast no longer appear on the stance bar and have a global cooldown, and Glyph of Aspect of the Cheetah no longer triggers any global cooldown on aspects. Aim Shot now deals 20% more damage and no longer interrupts auto attacks. Dismiss Pet now ignores line of sight. Hunter Pets now have 1 second global cooldown. Black Arrow's periodic effect now has a chance each time it deals damage to cause the next 2 explosive shots to cost no focus and not trigger a cooldown. This effect is guaranteed to activate at least once. Explosive Trap now places a periodic damage effect on each target within the radius of the explosion rather than a persistent effect on the ground. Next, Death Knights. Blood Boil damage has been increased by 50%, but no longer deals additional damage to targets affected by Blood Plague or Frost Fever. Hard Strike damage has been increased by 30%, but no longer deals additional damage for each disease present on the target. Obliterate now deals 25% more damage on bone, main, and offhand weapons, but no longer deals additional damage for each disease present on the target. Can you see a theme right there? Scourge Strike no longer deals additional damage for each disease present on the target. The ability now deals 50% of the physical damage dealt as additional shadow damage. This effect can critically hit and no longer ignores modifiers. Unholy Might for Unholy bonus changed from 35% to 10%. Hard Strike now only cleaves 1 additional target, down from 2. Death Strike now causes healing that scales in effectiveness with attack power instead of based on the damage taken in the last 5 seconds. Blood Rites now causes Death Strike to also cause an absorb for 50% of the amount healed. Rune Tap now grants an absorption shield that scales in effectiveness with attack power instead of heal based on the percentage of maximum health. It also now has 2 charges with a 30-second recharge time. Will of the Necropolis now grants an immediate charge and makes your next rune tap free. However, its damage reduction buff now only lasts 4 seconds, down from 8. Mastery Bloody Shields now increases the effectiveness of Blood Shield and the Rune Shield by 16%, percentage increased by Mastery, instead of adding the Blood Shield effect. Riposte has been redesigned. After getting a critical strike with an auto attack or rune strike, you gain plus 100% parry chance until you parry an attack. This can stack up to 2 times. Dancing Rune Weapon, Summoned Rune Weapon now remains fixated on the Death Knight's target at the time of summoning and copies the effect of talents that are tied to the Death Knight, such as Blood Boil, Frost Fever, and Asphyxiate. Should the original target be dead or otherwise unavailable, the rune weapon will switch to assist with the Death Knight's current target. Death Pact no longer requires an undead minion and instead places a heal absorb on you for 50% of the amount healed. And Anti-Magic Shell now restores 2 runing power per 1% of maximum health absorbed. Next we have Druids, and I think this is the last class, isn't it? Phew! Survival Instincts is now available to all Druid specs. Survival Instinct now reduces damage taken by 70% with a 2-minute cooldown, and for Feral and Guardian specializations can have up to 2 charges. Guardian Druid's Mastery, Nature Guardian, has been replaced with a new mastery, yay! It's called Primal Tenacity, and it causes the Druid to gain a physical absorb shield equal to 16% of the attack's damage when they are hit by a physical attack. Attacks which this effect fully or partially absorbs cannot trigger additional Primal Fury. Auto attacks now generate 5 rage, down from 10.9 rage. Lacerate now generates 10 rage, has no cooldown but cannot reset Mangle. Thresh now generates 2 rage every time it deals direct damage or periodic damage, but once again has no cooldown and it cannot reset Mangle. Fairy Fire cannot reset Mangle. Primal Fury now generates 5 rage when you dodge or non-periodically crit. Mangle now generates 30 rage and its cooldown is reduced by haste. Excellent. Bear Form no longer increases haste and crit from items by 50%, but instead causes haste to reduce global cooldown. Pounds had its damage increased by 100%. Primal Fury now also grants a combo point for area attacks that critically strike the Druid's primary target, and Glyph of Savagery now grants a free 5 combo point Savage Roar when leaving Prowl, instead of allowing Savage Roar to be used with 0 combo points. Tranquility now heals every party on raid member within range every 2 seconds for 8 seconds. It no longer places a periodical effect on that target, but the total amount should be pretty much the same as it was before. Swift Rejuvenation has been removed. Swift Mend no longer causes efflorescence, instead mushrooms cause efflorescence, like the glyph does already. Heart of the Wild no longer provides an increase to hit chance and expertise while active, and no longer increases stamina, agility and intellect. And Dream of Scenarios, for balance, casting Healing Touch no longer increases the damage bonus of the Druid's next Eclipse. Eclipse now causes the Druid's next Healing Touch to become instant cast and reset the cooldown on Star Surge. Interesting. Feral, casting Healing Touch no longer increases the damage of the Druid's next 2 melee abilities or increases the healing of Rejuvenation. And for Guardians, it no longer increases the crit strike chance of Mangle. Nature's Vigil, while active, increases single target damage and healing caused by healing spells by 16%, down from 25%, and all single target damage spells now also heal a nearby friendly target for 35% of the damage done, up from 25%. And that's it. Whew, holy crap. Anyway, I hope you guys liked this video. I hope you learned something new. I thank you a lot for watching, and I will see you in another one. Bye bye.